Princess Quest is honestly one of the most confusing aspects of modern FNAF lore. It has so many strange details that are so hard to fit together that it feels like we're missing a massive piece of context/lore that is necessary to make it make sense. Like, why is Chica watching us? Why is the tree that seems to be referencing the storyteller from Tales here? Why has its story seemingly changed so drastically from its first appearance to the one security breach? Who is the princess? Is it Cassidy? Vanessa? Elizabeth? Someone else that's blonde? And you're about to find out. So strap in because the truth about Princess Quest has some massive implications for the future. Princess Quest first started out in the most innocuous of places, the mobile port of Help Wanted. See, the mobile version couldn't handle the whole tape finding aspect of the original Help Wanted, so it was condensed into a little game where you play as a princess lighting lanterns. Light enough and you find it seems to be the source of the glitch trap virus, who seems to defeat the princess, at least temporarily, while saying, "I always come back, let me out." The two most popular candidates for the identity of the princess are Vanessa and the vengeful spirit Cassidy. The idea that this is Vanessa is supported by the fact that Princess Quest takes the place of the tape collecting gimmick from the original Help Wanted. Vanessa collects the tapes by lighting lanterns and by doing so gets consumed by the glitch trap virus. But we can see that that idea isn't entirely accurate. While Princess Quest does show up in Help Wanted's mobile port while the tapes do not, that doesn't mean they're trying to tell the same story or establish the same lore. We can even prove that that's not the case. The number of lanterns in Princess Quest and the number of tapes in Help Wanted don't actually match, and in Help Wanted, as you collect more tapes, Glitch Trap gets closer to you and more tangible, but in Princess Quest, Glitch Trap is actively trying to fight you off and kill the princess before she can light on the lanterns. We're not seeing Glitch Trap become bigger and more real as we light the lanterns, we're seeing him do everything in his power to stop us from lighting them. These narratives do not line up. And this is even further demonstrated by Princess Quest 2. The fact that there even is a sequel to this story speaks volumes about how Princess Quest isn't supposed to be a parallel to the cassette tapes in Help Wanted. The princess fades back into consciousness to be greeted by a suspicious old man colored in red. He's relieved that she's alive and hands her the Sword of Light, a weapon that is not only capable of lighting lanterns, but is also something she can use to fight off Glitch Trap. When last the princess faced Glitch Trap, even though she lit the lanterns, she was without the means to put a stop to him. But she can put a stop to him now. I wouldn't be the first person to draw connections between the Old Man and Old Man Consequences, but yeah, even outside of their names and color palette, their dialogue settings and motivations line up too. Look at this area. Look a little familiar? It should. Glowing blue mushrooms and ponds and waterfalls is the setting of Ruin's final confrontation. Not only that, but I want to bring attention to the idea that these rounded sprites from FNAF World might not be trees, they might be mushrooms. And when the princess finishes lighting all the lanterns in her second game, the Old Man urges her to rest, just as Old Man Consequences does. She ignores him and walks into a glitchy door which sends her into Help Wanted's rendition of a Fazbear location. She continues to fight off Glitch Trap and light lanterns. She sees FNAF 1's Chica, or more accurately, Chica sees her. Put a pin in this, it's going to be important later. She collects a plushie of Glitch Trap and after diving into Cursed Dreadbear, collects the Vanny Mask. She uses both of these items to unlock a chest which gives her the same kind of key used to find Glitch Trap back in Princess Quest 1. She goes through the center stage current, where the player got trapped in Help Wanted, and finds herself in a cave. At the very end of the tunnel, she finds Glitch Trap, who has been holed up here in the system. She opens the door and we hear it scream, and the Glitch Trap virus is wiped from not only the Pizzaplex, but also from the minds of those it has corrupted. Now that we have the story down, let's back up for a second. By now it's pretty common knowledge that the princess was originally named Cassidy in the files, but that once this was discovered, it was edited to just say Princess. That has never happened before in FNAF. Usually when there's a common misconception from one game, Scott tries to clarify the truth in the next game, but going back into the files of a game to edit a lore drop is totally unprecedented, and it's by far the most compelling evidence against the theory that the princess is Cassidy. But it doesn't debunk the theory by any means. I've already touched on how the story of Princess Quest 1 does not match Help Wanted's collecting tape story at all, but that's just scratching the surface. Again, in the first Princess Quest, we see 6 gravestones, with only 1 lit. This seems like a pretty clear-cut connection to William's first victims. We are the 5 MCI kids and Charlie. Looking at the graves closer, even though only 1 is lit, only 4 are broken. Those 4 could represent how the spirits that possessed Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy have moved on. The remaining 2 gravestones could represent Cassidy, we're assuming that she is the princess for now, and Charlie, who has a lot of evidence that implies she's also still around. Even Chica being here is more evidence for this being Cassidy. Susie was the first, she has seen everything. I think this voice line is specifically stating that Susie was the first of the MCI kids, not William's first victim overall. What's important to take note of here is that it would make sense that Chica's here watching the princess if the princess is Cassidy. Chica sees the princess in the same way that Susie saw Cassidy. There's no reason for Chica to be here if the princess is Vanessa. I think now is a good time to bring up the Princess Quest duffel bags from Security Breach. A lot of people have theorized that the person writing this is Lewis from FNAF AR, and while that very well could be true, the identity of this person ultimately doesn't have any real significance on Princess Quest, so I won't definitively say this is or is not Lewis. The important thing here is that he cannot play Princess Quest. Even after beating the first 2 games, Princess Quest 3 will not turn on for him. He eventually comes to a very interesting conclusion. Quote, "They are working together. The arcades, they are hiding something. The glitches. Glitch them all at the same time. Then the princess will recognize me. She's testing me. I am not yet worthy. The others are protecting it. Let me stay. I am so close. Just one more night, please. I can save the princess." This is interesting because it shows that Gregory is special. He's allowed to play all the Princess Quest games. According to the Arcade Gamer, the other arcade games need to be glitched out in order for Princess Quest to see him as worthy. Gregory, or GGY, has the highest arcade scores in the Pizzaplex and is known to be a hacker. He glitched them out. That's why Gregory is able to play Princess Quest and save the princess, when this technician was not. Another important detail to note here is that the arcade technician mentions that Princess Quest did indeed used to be from the mobile version of Help Wanted in the canon lore of the games. So we can see it's not that Princess Quest was just teased in Help Wanted, and that the real version is an arcade cabinet security breach. No, it's really a part of the mobile version of Help Wanted in-universe. But why? The tapes aren't Help Wanted because TapeGo ripped Glitchtrap into tiny little pieces and scattered them around the game. Why is Princess Quest here? Where did it come from? It's impossible to get a definitive answer to that question, but in my opinion, I think in much the same way that Charlie tends to show up wherever Athen is causing a ruckus, I think Cassidy manifested herself as an add-on to Help Wanted to fight Glitchtrap. I'm still formulating my thoughts on whether or not Glitchtrap is entirely a mimic program or part Willy and part mimic, but whichever one is the case, I think Cassidy wants to put a stop to it. But she loses in Princess Quest 1. With nothing but a lantern to defend herself, she can't beat Glitchtrap. It's only after someone who has glitched out the other arcade games and proven themselves worthy activates Princess Quest is she able to get her hands on a weapon. I think the princess traveling to Help Wanted's FNAF location when the old man tells her to rest is also very important. She lit up all the darkness of the dungeon, but she hasn't confronted the source of the virus yet, so she continues forth. Considering the AR world we see in Ruin and the storyteller tree connections, I think this area is where Glitchtrap took refuge after possessing Vanny. I think this is the system of the Pizzaplex. The dungeon that the princess was previously in was the code of Help Wanted. The princess finds the items connected to Glitchtrap's reluctant follower and uses them to get to where he's hiding and deal with him once and for all. The Glitchtrap virus is purged from the Pizzaplex and from everywhere else it has corrupted, and everyone lives happily ever after. Or at least that's how it should have been. In truth, what really happened is very different and far less of a happy ending. But that's for a different video. This video was originally going to be twice as long instead of being split up into 2 parts, but I really wanted to get this video done before the FNAF movie came out. Although, before I leave, I should probably try to refute a couple of the common arguments against Cassidy being the princess as best I can. First, and most obviously, Steel Wool went out of their way to change the name of the princess from Cassidy to just Princess, while other lore names, the files like Charlie Adore, have not been removed. The best defense I have is that Steel Wool might just be trying to build up to a big twist, and that they might not want that big twist to be confirmed yet. As an example, we know Steel Wool can make decisions about lore simply to keep the fanbase from guessing the lore before they can make a story out of it. Remember how it was leaked that Steel Wool did a massive story retcon to security breach because Map had figured it out before the game was released? I think a similar kind of thing might be going on here. And the other common argument against Princess Cassidy is the question of why they would bring back Cassidy from a writing perspective. The reason for that is, I think we are missing a piece of context/story that takes place between Ultimate Custom Night and Help Wanted, and it's very possible that we might get more Princess Quest stuff in Help Wanted 2 that could answer this question. I also want to mention that while I've already discussed the idea that Vanessa is the princess and why I disagree with that, there is a small number of people that believe that Princess is Elizabeth. I think most people that believe this theory also believe that Elizabeth is possessing or connected to Vanessa as well, but either way, I actually made a video about where I think Baby and Elizabeth really are in security breach and Ruin, so go watch that if you're interested in that topic or if you still believe Elizabeth is possessing Vanessa. Anyway, stay tuned for part 2 to this theory and let me know how you feel about the video and the conclusions I came to. Remember that this is all just my opinion and subscribe if you enjoyed. Bye!